Peace and love, everybody. It's your Brozo here with the Elevated Beings podcast. And I have with us today Master Yao. And first off, I want to thank you, Master Yao, for being able to interact with you and share this information to the people, first off. And as we know in Elevated Beings podcast, I like to bring people that can give with great information for the people to help uplift themselves, elevate themselves, to become better people. Master Yao is definitely that one of those individuals. And again, like I said, I appreciate you, taking the time to build with me and the people. Now, like I always do, always let my guests kind of explain who they are and what they do. So please.
I started on my journey, I guess, when I was a teenager. I always had sort of an interaction with the nature and nature spirits that I guess some people don't have. And I had a burning desire to travel to Africa. And when I got there for the first time, I was about 19, 20. And I met some medicine men that you would call, or shaman, or whatever you want to call them, and they helped me to understand, why I had wanted to come there, and what they answered my questions about my roots and why I was seeing the things that I was seeing. So I've been kind of doing this type of stuff for a long, long time. Then in 1990, I had an experience, like an accident or whatever, and I had an experience, and then I started this project. I started to interact with all of these different people that's in the spiritual business, so to speak, shamans, medicine men, gurus, swamis, and that type of people, midwives and stuff like that. And as a consequence of that, I was led on this. I became part of this project called Amanmara, which was the study of indigenous cultures. And it's one of those things that you start it with one idea, and then it turns into something completely different. To make a long story short, I just began cataloging and archiving all of this, so to speak, rare information. And it became a system. And eventually I called it the thegrandtrine system. It's actually more than one system, but we're trying to keep it all together. Anyway, I began writing down what I had learned or what I had collected, and the stuff that I was downloading or channeling. I started writing books, so I've written quite a few. Some of them I've published to the public. Most of them are still in the private domain. And so one of the books is Awakening the Master Feminine, and it's one of our bestsellers. So that focuses on the female energy, what it consists of, how to cultivate it, what the indigenous outlook on femininity is, the role in society, how to cultivate that, motherhood, sisterhood, the whole thing. A couple of years, about the same time, we wrote the book Awakening the Master Masculine, dealing with the different roles of the male in a natural society, the father, excuse me, the father role, warrior role, healer role, hunter, whatever. The last book that we published is called the Holy Grail of Orgasm, and it deals with the production of DMT naturally, as the pathway to access occult knowledge, occult information. It talks about the different levels of sexuality, how to achieve them, why we have certain types of dysfunctions. And that segues into what we're going to talk about today, because our topic today is, male potency and the male side of the male-female relationship. And, I don't think ever before have I seen the level of dysfunction at the point that it is today. Mm-hmm. I just don't think society is prepared for where male potency has declined. I'm not necessarily surprised by it, but it's alarming in its own right, because it's also talking about the male vital life force, and for that matter the female, how our vital life force in this society at this time has really dropped to a dangerous level, and all that goes with that. So I'm not going to preach about how society has gotten off the natural path, because it was never on the natural path. And even many of the indigenous societies had started to stray away from the natural path in the last 300 or 400 years, as we see. So, in my own experience with this, in my 20s, I was I was in a corporate job, and I had a lot of pressure on me. And I remember encountering some of these male issues: the premature ejaculation thing, the potency thing, just failure to get erect, but more than all of that was a feeling of being not important, or not that society. And this goes for whites, blacks, Asians, it doesn't matter. It wasn't a lot of racial thing. This feeling that society had diminished male power and female power for that reason, that point. And then what happened with me was I didn't talk about it. And therefore, because I didn't talk about it, the problem was not addressed. And so for me personally, it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't like a major thing that haunted me, or it was always there. It was something that came every once in a while, and then it was gone. I was trying to figure out myself. Luckily, I had a history of research. So I would talk to older men, and one-on-one, older men, they'll talk to you. They'll tell you what's going on, And then I realized that this problem was common, and it was not a secret thing. It was not just one or two people having this experience. Just about everybody was. And the reason that it never got better for most men, they didn't address it.
Yeah.
They didn't address it. They didn't talk about it.
They the check engine light, they just put a piece of black tape over it instead of taking it to the shop, right?
Then the other thing that I figured out, that half the problem was mine, mainly diet and lifestyle, and the other half of the problem was the women I was dealing with.
I can understand that.
So, I remember talking to the fellas, at the barber shop, at the bar, wherever, and we were having these frank conversations. And then guys did not want to admit that they were dealing with some very masculine-natured women, and that it could affect them sexually. I remember having arguments about it. And then guys would come back to you a month later, and they would come back to the same group of men, and they would admit, okay, I was wrong. I just didn't want to admit that I was wrong. But I need to start looking at the way I'm choosing women differently. And I carried all of those lessons with me: the stubbornness of men, the secrecy of the shame in the whole thing, and the fact that we do not want to acknowledge just how out of sync, out of balance this society is. It's like we have this feeling like we're supposed to conquer everything, and we're supposed to be the master of the universe, and we do not want to admit that the society in general is so dysfunctional that it just cripples us in certain regards. And then we certainly don't want to admit that the women that we're attracted to sometimes are just toxic, and you need to leave them alone.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I remember it took me into my late 30s to come to the realization of the importance of a good female and making that the main priority, as opposed to looking at a fat ass, big boobs, and all kind of stuff like that. Because when you're younger, you're like, yeah, this is where it's at. But me personally, I know I got wrapped up into that when I was, younger, and it never worked out right. It never worked out in a good manner. But on the flip side, the whole quality over quantity, well, not even quantity, because, seeking quality in the female has, changed my whole perspective, or just in people in general, but specifically, a female, that has changed my perspective completely when it comes to relationship.
And taking that one step further, the lesson that I had to accept was that just as I had to start looking at the toxicity in women, I had to start looking at the toxicity in myself. And this is the other thing that's hard for me to grasp. So, we'll switch gears just a little bit. We're going to come back to that part of it. But the other thing that I gradually came into alignment with by the time we got to 1990, and I started the Amamra Project, I started to realize how because of our disconnection from the indigenous community, these modern societies have become disconnected. Well, it's not a disconnection. They have purposefully suppressed the knowledge of the real world. And so that through religions, through education, miseducation, or particular worldview that's forced on people, we've stopped being told or taught what the entire world scope consists of. And we've got this little teeny part of the world that we're looking at. We're not looking at the whole thing. And, scientists keep bumping up against it, but we still aren't there yet. So everybody thinks that science is so modern, so expanded. It is not. It is not. And while our scientists and scholars and academics are trying to get there, there are equal forces in society keeping them from sharing certain things and expressing certain things and going in certain directions. So what I'm really getting at here is, we're looking at things from the perspective of being the earth and this reality, what we can see with our senses. And the truth of the matter is, that's not the main world. I mean, that's the main sense world, that's the main world of reality in terms of daily experience. But that is not by any means the entire world. And it's not even the most important part of the world. The beginning of our existence, and it's a very small elite group of scientists, I guess, that have become aware of this. And of course, in the indigenous communities, they've known this for thousands of years. It's what you call the quantum field That is where it all begins. We don't have a good idea of what suns are, how orbs are made, what the black holes are. There's a few people that are aware of these things. I mean, everybody thinks that stuff goes into black holes, but that's stuff comes out of them too.
Yeah.
And so this whole equation of the whole thing with the quantum field and the Earth's quantum field and what's happening to it is, when it's been learned by people who are in the scientific community and who have credibility, they've been silenced. And this has been the case since history began, I guess. So let me give you a quick outline of this and why this is critical to male sexuality. So the quantum field, I'm not going to try to give you a science lesson right now, but it's that's kind of like the beginning of life. And it sort of produces echoes outside of itself. It produces a world, right? And then each one produces a world inside of it. So the quantum field produces a reality, and then that reality produces like an echo, which we call the light body. And it's difficult to perceive it, yes. That world is difficult to describe, but that is where entities like angels live and that type of thing, right? Then that world produces a more dense, a lower vibration replica of itself. That's what we call with the energy realm, the energy body, the astral plane or whatever.
Okay.
And that's what when you die from the physical body, that's where you go. You go to that
transition. Yeah,
you cross to the next highest level, and you stay there for a while, and then you try to come back down here again. And then the most dense world, the most material world, the chemical world, here on Earth. So that you've got an aspect of your body that's existing on all four of these realms or worlds or dimensions, if you will. And this is the knowledge that really changes everything. The people who know this and who function this way basically run things. And those of you who don't are basically run by them, basically. Okay? So now, let me leave that political venue alone. So the basic thing is that male potency comes about when these four worlds are aligned. That's it. When you have a straight stream of energy and consciousness flowing from one part of you down to the physical body, that male is extremely potent. If there's a misalignment in that stream, or if these bodies, three different bodies, the light body, the energy body, and the physical body, are not communicating properly, are not connected properly, then male potency suffers. And this is the main result, this is the main cause of male potency issues. So
that makes perfect sense.
Disconnection, misalignment, and disconnection.
The water hose has a crank in it.
Right.
It's supposed to being.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And it's just on a higher level. It's just different dimensions, which is the crank could be in different vibrational levels.
It's like three land masses with bridges in between them. And so you can't get everything to flow across the bridges from one landmass to the other. And so you can't get the effect on this landmass that you want, because the stuff that's supposed to flow back and forth over these bridges, these networks, is not flowing.
Gotcha.
So it's relatively simple to deal with the issues that affect the physical body only, what I call the cell body. but the main problems are not existing in the cell body. The sexual formula, most of the issues there are in the energy body, the middle body. That's where most of the sexual issues are. And the thing that's running everything is the top body, the light body. So it's like, it's like going to the president and saying, we want to change how something, we want to change the orders of how the thing is going to run. Or going to the janitor and saying, okay, can you, change the way this organization works? And the janitor's going to tell you, no, all I do is clean floors, fool. But that's what we're doing. We're going to the physical body to correct stuff that's in the energy body, and the energy body is ruled by the light body. So I know these terms may confuse some of you or may not be familiar to some of you, but I believe that you are intelligent enough that you can grasp this. So now, the thing that when we are approaching, if I'm coaching men personally, privately, or if I'm teaching classes, the first thing that I tell people is when you're trying to solve a problem, you go to the highest body possible. That's where you start. You don't start at the physical body. You always go, we're still learning how to deal with the quantum field, so, we haven't really gotten there yet. But we're doing a lot of work with the light body, and we have some knowledge of it. I'm not an expert yet at all, by any means, but so I always say we go to the highest body first. We go up as high as we can, because any small change you make on the light body level has a major impact by the time it cascades down to the physical body. And a lot of you won't know how to do those types of changes, but that's okay. There are people who do, and I'm not advocating that men try to do major things in a field he's not familiar with. We're just telling you to open up the channels, and a lot of it will take care of itself. So when we do small things, part of it is feeding the light body, and part of it is unblocking the channels of communication between these bodies. The light body will fix it on its own. So to give you an example of what I'm talking about and how this connects, if you look at where the actual action takes place for erectile failure to get an erection, okay? So you're really talking about brain neurochemistry, prostate gland. What's operating that? What actually goes wrong? So what's actually going wrong is you having a problem between the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system, which this is the autonomic nervous system, which are the two cords running down along the sides of the spine. So the spine carries the central nervous system, but there's two cords running down on either side of it. One of them is the parasympathetic, the other one is the sympathetic. That is what is controlling the prostate, right? Then the other part of it is the autonomic nervous system is the nervous system that's controlling the things that you don't have complete control of, like your heartbeat, your lungs, and cell growth and things like that. Those things are supposed to be controlled from the light body. But oftentimes, because we are out of connection, they're not getting their signals from the light body. Sometimes they're only getting the signals from the physical body, from the physical brain. And that's just going to keep repeating the program that you're currently set on. It's not going to update and correct. So what causes the thing, the parasympathetic or the sympathetic nervous system to change? How can you change the program now? How can you fix something there? So we get into something called neurotransmitters. They're all over the body. That's, scores of them throughout the body, different types, that give different types of signals. The one that is most involved with the sexual operation of the autonomic nervous system is called ACH, acetylcholine. So look it up, research it, and you say to yourself, okay, why does acetylcholine work in some people, in some men, doesn't work in others? Because it's not simply a hormone. It's not simply a neurotransmitter. The only time that it starts doing its job properly is when it's able to get the signal from the light body. So look up ACH and what does it do? And you'll see that its job, what it normally typically does in the young man, is it's constantly giving the signals so that your organs secrete the things that they do and function the way that it causes smooth muscle masses to contract or do what they do, especially at the prostate. It's giving signals to cause it to function or not function and to do different particular types of things in a certain way. The other thing that it does is it controls, when it's secreted, those neurotransmitters, it controls or influences the neurochemistry of the brain to condition the brain to be able to carry out certain functions in the autonomic nervous system. And what separates when it's functioning properly from when it's not functioning properly, I'm talking about the neurotransmitters, is if it's getting the signal from the light body or it's not getting the signal. Critical point. So what I'm trying to tell you is that when these neurotransmitters, one of them being ACH, is disconnected from the light body, it's simply repeating what it's been doing to the extent that it can. In other words, whatever state you're currently in, it just keeps it's got the same signal. It's just a broken record over and over and over again. If it connects to the light body, it's just like your computer connecting to the internet and resetting. It's like you're connecting to the to your email account or whatever, and then it resets. As soon as your router stops working, it can't do that no more.
Stop there.
In other words, it just keeps recycling.
Yeah.
It's whatever you've got in that file or that application, it just keeps doing that.
It can't move forward.
It can't move forward. It can't go to the internet and reset and get the new information that allows it to take the next step.
Gotcha.
So this is what's happening with the neurotransmitters connected to the autonomic nervous system. They're sitting there. They're basically saying, well, we're not getting any new information. Let's just keep secreting, transmitting to the nerves to continue to do what they've been doing, which oftentimes is broken. And so you're sitting there, with a premature ejaculation program, you can't fix it. So now, in order for this to work, sometimes you have to do two things. You have to fix the cause of the problem, which could be dietary or whatever, and then fix the neurotransmitter problem, and then the neurotransmitter problem will send a new signal to, okay, here's the reset. And if the clog in the wheel has been removed, it will reset. If the clog is in, if there's something still stuck there, then it's going to try to reset, but there's the clog there. If you move that thorn out, the obstruction that's there, if you move that out, and then the neurotransmitter hits the reset, then boom, you don't have the problem no more.
Yeah.
Same thing with potency, and same thing with certain intimacy issues. You have to have this alignment for the man to be in power, so that it's very important to get this light body connection working. So, okay, the process of getting it to work is a little more complicated. we go into it in some detail in this book, but even in the book, it may not necessarily tailor to a man's specific situation. So you got to really start to learn about this whole operation. Most men know how to operate in their physical body. That's great. That's important too. But you really need to operate in your energy body, your auric field, your chakras, all of that. And you need to learn how to operate in your light body. And when I say operate in your light body, you want to start out with just basic stuff. The most basic thing you need to know is that what the light body eats is sunlight. Duh. So you cannot go through life not getting sunlight. If you want to know very simply how to help your skin to absorb sunlight, then the first thing you want to do is take once a week turmeric, which is an herb, a cooking herb. It helps the skin to condition it so that it absorbs sunlight better. Second thing, melanin. Melanin is what's in the skin that allows it to convert sunlight into the serum that feeds the light body. Melanin. So melanin allows you to have a very strong light body because it allows you to feed the light body. And that separates the races. Primarily, we believe the races became the way that they are from environmental reasons. But I'm not going to really get deep into that. But there are certain things that you can do to make your melanin work better. And I'll let other people, this is common information, other people can deal with that. You want to be careful of the train of things that connected to the sunlight. So what does it do? What does the serum do? It combines with B5 or enzyme A or acetylene, whatever, and it makes vitamin D3, or vitamin D. And vitamin D is one of the prime precursors for ACH. Light bulb should be going off. Now you're beginning to see that there's a bridge, there's a corridor, a conduit between these bodies. So you're like, how does this energy body get its signals? How does this physical body? So we start to see that many of the neurotransmitters, the nervous system, it's getting its original signal from the light body. And in order for it to do that, it has to be fed. Sunlight is that food. So anything involving this pathway of the sunlight entering the body and being converted to neurotransmitters, you got to pay attention to that if you're going to be potent. Now, there's a lot of different relationships like this. We don't have time to get into all of them today. But I guess the takeaway here is that most of the things that affect male potency, male's disposition in relationships, and the entire things that add quality and value to male life are not physical. They're not chemical. They're not in a pill. It's so easy to pop pills, yep. But that's my bottom line to men is get out of that thinking. So most of it is lifestyle related. It's lifestyle related. It's understanding that, this organic lifestyle means that you're going to take into account the true scope of the world. And this alignment thing between these bodies is probably one of the most critical aspects of being able to apply this other knowledge that you get out here. If you don't look at it in the right framework of the entire world and all of the things that are affecting you, you can't apply it correctly. And this is a lifestyle issue. If you're looking for dietary things, exercise, chemical things to fix the problem, you're fixing the wrong problem. Mm-hmm. The problem is alignment. And the problem is that there's a lack of communication between these bodies, these different aspects of you. This is the secret of secrets. And, most of the initiations into shaman involve getting familiar with this type of knowledge. Most shamanistic initiations involve learning about the energy body and the energy realm. And the higher level shamans, what few that they are today, it involves dealing with the light body and that type of stuff. And so then what it comes back to, then you start to see this whole thing of that. Once you start looking at this alignment issue, you start to see that, masculine energy has a hard time existing in an environment with toxic female energy. Mm-hmm. It's like, having a magnet and, you've got the opposite type magnet trying to work against it. You've got a whole bunch of different electromagnetic fields interfering with the magnet. When you have women who are trying to be men, big problem. If you're in the proximity of a very masculine yang woman for large amounts of time, energetically, it seeks to destroy your masculine energy at the physical level. If you have a constant stream of communication from the energy body and the light body, you will constantly be fixing this, and you'll still be able to operate at a rather high level of efficiency. If that's not the case, and with most men it's not the case, being in the proximity of yang women for large periods of time will destroy your ability to maintain, your masculine energy. Let me say that again. Half the problem with male potency has nothing to do with the man. It's a feminist issue. The other half has to do with misogyny. The fact that you don't see your masculine energy properly. A lot of us think of masculine energy as, okay, we got to control women, we got to boss women, we got to have force, and we got to be aggressively policing them. Mm-hmm. And this whole misogynistic point of view that is based in religion causes you to change and shift your masculine energy in a way that causes it not to be masculine energy anymore. Masculine energy is not that. It's not that misogynistic stuff. It's not that sharp macho, I'm going to come over and conquer your territory.
The
caveman.
Cracking you over the head with a stick and taking you in the cave.
But more importantly, the imperialistic notions that the modern nations have, that if we can conquer you, we have the right to do that.
So it's interesting you say that, because it's like you said earlier, the people that rule this world, they pretty much rule. The people that know this rule the world, but also the people that rule it, vast majority of them, I would say, have less melanin. Am I correct?
Yes.
So there's a certain mindset that would come along from the disconnection, of having the light body and the less melanin to produce a specific type of mindset to rule properly.
Well, I disagree with that.
Okay.
Because of this reason. The people that actually are the most powerful entities are sitting on the sidelines doing nothing.
I got you.
Waiting for the mainstream humanity to start acting right.
I got you. So it's not even a physical thing. It's not even a physical entity, person sitting here.
Well, what I'm saying is that the people currently in governments and in corporations and have the money, who are taking daily actions
Mm-hmm.
are not the people at the top.
Yeah, I got you.
They're the people who just, for whatever coincidence,
Mm-hmm.
are in power.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're waiting for people, the masses of people,
Mm-hmm.
to take them out of power
Mm-hmm.
by embracing the organic
I
lifestyle,
got you.
showing that they're worthy of their
Oh.
intervention. When people start showing that they're worthy of intervention, then the true powers start to change things and start to force the issue and make stuff become a little fairer and more adverse. In other words, the reason that the world is such a rotten place is because average common people act so rotten. When average common people start acting like they value the ascension, that they value the right information, that they value, it's like we've had a slew of avatars and we've had a slew of just highly evolved people come here constantly trying to deliver a very straightforward message. And the masses of people have killed them.
Mm.
Almost, or imprisoned them, almost without exception.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some that we know,
Mm-hmm.
but people have persecuted. I mean, whether you're talking about Muhammad, Jesus, Buddha,
Mm-hmm.
and those are really the lesser ones.
Mm-hmm.
Even, I'm not going to call all the names, but
Mm-hmm.
There's been a continuous stream of them in every continent, in every decade,
Mm-hmm.
that going back to the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And it was clear that they were espousing a higher way of life.
Mm-hmm.
And the common people have just killed them.
Honest.
So how do you expect that
Yeah.
the community that they're coming from,
Mm-hmm.
that they're going to start to intervene
I got you.
in this situation here until they're saying, why should we remove these evil people
Mm-hmm.
when you're just going to replace them with more evil people?
I got you. That makes so much sense.
Why should we make things better for you? Why should we clean the earth? Why should we do all of this stuff when you're just going to trash it?
Mm-hmm.
So when you start treating your people
Uh-huh.
and your family better, when you start treating the people who are teaching you the right way better, when you start paying attention and trying to change yourself and be better, when we see enough of that, we'll start changing from the other end.
I read somewhere that there was that because of the negative mindset of humanity, there was a negative crystallization pretty much that went around the planet. And the thing that fuels that is just because of the way that we love greed. We love all of these different things, and literally an international galactic confederation said that this place has to get, before we intervene, you all have to raise to a higher consciousness.
You got to come up to a minimum level before we're gonna try to think about it.
That
Exactly.
makes perfect sense. I see what you're saying. That makes perfect sense. So it's not even, like you said earlier, it's not even a race thing.
I mean, it is a race thing in the current situation.
The current situation,
but that's not the root of it. That's
Exactly.
something beyond that.
Yeah, I got
And yeah, it's a race thing right now, but it's not what people think.
And that's not the solution.
Well, that's the first solution, but
Yeah.
there's a solution beyond that.
Yeah.
That's not going to solve the problem. That's going to solve the immediate issue, the short-term issue, but then there are other issues behind that. It's
I got
like,
you.
so that when you get back to this male-female thing, you have to go back and see that men, especially the European man, has an imperialistic. That's the problem. That's what's keeping him from evolving. And because he's not evolving, he's holding everybody else down too. In other words, this imperialistic policy basically saying, if I become strong enough to do it, I'm going to do it, and that makes it right. But it doesn't make it right. And that's the same way that men treat women. They have this imperialistic attitude for anything. How you deal with your children, property. Well, you cannot own property. This concept that you can have a title and claim it, that's completely stupid.
Yeah.
You can't own that.
You can't own it.
And you cannot claim a woman. You cannot have a monogamous relationship. That is so unnatural. It's like you cannot claim somebody that you have certain rights because you have a relationship with that person. That's like even God does not claim to own you. He gives you free will. If he owned you, then he would have you make a certain type of, you would not be able to make certain decisions. So, I mean, moving back to this whole thing, to the central premise, this whole imperialistic attitude, people believe that it allows you to get countries. We can win wars, we can conquer, and I can get these women, and I can do all of this stuff. But what it really does is it puts up a ceiling that you can't go beyond. So yes, you can gain control of the neighborhood, state, the city, but you can't really gain control of anything important. When I say important, anything sustainable. The same way that you gain control of that, another group of men can take it from you. So you can never really do anything that's going to be long-term sustainable.
Gotcha.
And this is the same way that men are looking at women. So that you can't really, that's not going to work.
Wow.
Because that's looking at masculinity. It's not masculinity. That is a false masculinity that prevents you from understanding, or it prevents your masculinity from expressing itself. So you can't have true masculine energy. True masculine energy is when you remove that and you evolve to the point where that's no longer something that you would consider being. When you evolve beyond that, and you can see that that's stupid, and it's non-organic, and it's unsustainable, then you can start to access the masculine power in the light body. Until you do, what you have basically done is you have poisoned your masculinity. So then the next thing that we see is that, feminism is just as bad or not worse. Feminism is basically saying, okay, well, because men are misogynistic and stupid, let's be misogynistic and stupid too. And then you get these men out here who say, well, let me go and relate to these toxic masculine women and think that they're not going to have consequences. Well, we see the consequences in the state of the man today. It's pretty bad. So you cannot, it's like if you're trying to fix your intimate profile, how you relate to women, and you're trying to fix your potency issues, you want to do some of the things people see me do in the videos where, the truly potent male, he can, his ability of having interaction with the women is supernatural. And so we say supernatural because it's so uncommon today. But that should be common. That really what we call supernatural is really normal if you're organically indigenous. In other words, if we were the men we should be, all of this stuff would be normal to us. But so the average man can't do these things, even if you try to teach him the techniques, because he's not in alignment. He's not in alignment because he's misogynistic, he's imperialistic, or the opposite of that is he refuses to embrace his masculine responsibility, and he's, basically just running after these toxic women because of the gratification. Either side of the pendulum that you're swinging, you can't express your masculine energy. And when you have true masculine energy, it's broadcast, and the woman's going to react to it if she's not a toxic woman. And then you don't need to learn intimacy. You don't need to learn relationship. You simply allow the DNA programs to run.
Naturally.
And then you don't have to figure any of that out. You know, the neurotransmitters at that point in time are autopilot, and you just follow your instincts in your relationships with the woman, and boom, it's all good.
That all makes so much sense. I mean, in so many levels, because I'm looking at it from, even like you were saying, like from the higher realms down to just to what I see every day and been taught since I've been on this planet. And I always say to myself, like the natural, or like for example, like you say going to Africa, like the most advanced people I've seen are the ones that are stuck in the organic, natural mindset, as opposed to the artificial. And that makes so much sense. And the exact opposite, meaning the people that are, on top of the world now. It's like that's not the example to follow. That is so. I mean, that's heavy, man. That's heavy. It's makes sense, but it's heavy too.
I talk to a lot of men who come out of it. They go through the Grand Trine programs. They read the books. I've been getting so much feedback. Guys try to get into this what we call high-level orgasm, or get to the point where the orgasm is no longer sexual, where it's not just a sexual event anymore. And after they make that transition out of it, because you got to conquer your pain body and phase that and do stuff like that, they just say to themselves, they say to me, I can't believe how backward the world is when it comes to sex.
Yeah.
And I used to be a part of that. And they just can't believe that they struggled so hard when it was so easy to have good sexual relations.
Yeah.
So easy, where you're not worried about it. You're just chilling.
Yeah, chilling.
And it's not even a concern.
Yeah.
You don't, you just kind of, everything is just, you don't even, the female relationship thing is just, that's just something that happens.
Non-issue.
It's a non-issue.
Okay, and that's, like I said, that's very powerful. And so we talked about entities earlier, and I'm very much interested in that. I have some knowledge on the different entities. Could you please elaborate on some of the entities you were talking about?
So, the positive entities are beings. Some of them are human, some of them used to be human, and some of them were never human. And some of them have bodies, the way we would define it, some of them don't. But the entities that are more important right now are the negative entities. So they are a totally different class. They're more like parasites.
Oh, wow.
And, I mean, if you study physical parasites, you've got physical parasites in the cell body that some of them are microscopic and some of them are, 30 feet long. But they're so thin that they're wrapped around, but you can when people die and the coroner does an autopsy, it's not uncommon to find, several large parasites in people's colons. You see these big guts out here and stuff. And you're liable to find a parasite in there, 30 feet, when you unstring it, 30 feet long, that's been in there probably 10 years. So you have the same thing in all of the bodies. You have this type of an entity that's parasitic. So at the energy body level, you have these things. We wouldn't call, their function is similar to like worms, but their structure is not that. They have different types of structures, but it's the same function. At the light body level, they're more sentient. So the things at the physical level aren't really thinking so much. They're not complex organisms that are. I mean, you know what a worm is.
Yes.
Worm is a worm is a worm. It's a pretty simple, straightforward type of entity. At the energy body level, it's more complicated, and it can do more complex stuff, but it's still not thinking and reasoning the way we are. When you get to the light body level, it can sustain much more complex, intricate entities that are parasitic. So then you even get to the point where some of them are demonic. Now, they're not demons, but they're demonic in nature, and they're created by war, poverty, I mean on a massive scale, natural disasters, racial oppression, the negative things in the world on a large social scale creates this demonic activity. The most common entities at the light body level are humans that die in trauma, mainly from suicide. So in this world, this current world here in the United States is filled with them. It's an epidemic now.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of, if people are murdered or if they die from an illness that's very painful and very traumatizing. In other words, you know, they didn't expect to get it, and it's, it's something that's very traumatizing, and they die from that, and they die relatively quickly. They don't want to go, and they attach to people at the heart level, at the light body level, and they have become what we call dark deceased entities. And once they die, they stop being conscious the way they used to be conscious. They can't think, they can't update to current situations. They're like a broken record that keeps thinking the same thing, and the person that they attach to, they want that person to fix the thing that caused them to die.
Wow, that's heavy.
So that's what we call dark deceased. Then there are elemental entities, which are a little more complicated, and there are probably 50 types of entities I'm aware of, and maybe a few hundred I'm not aware of, because I'm not aware of everything. I mean, it's a lot of it. The point I'm making is that most of them are not that powerful, and most of the people who have basic training in that can expel them. And we spend a lot of time getting rid of entities in people.
Wow.
And I would say 30% of the men experiencing severe sexual issues, it's post-traumatic stress syndrome from entities that they currently either have or used to have at the light body level that stopped the light body from sending the signal so that their neurotransmitters could update. And so their lifestyle, their misogyny, their diet caused a problem in the beginning, but they're not able to fix it because the entity was there. Right? And then they may have expelled the entity on their own, but so this negative entity thing is a big problem. It's worse with females, and it needs to, there are people who have been trying to address it, because about 15 years ago, it just started becoming epidemic. It wasn't as bad, and based on my experience, at least not in the places, the cities where I live. It's really becoming an epidemic right now. And the only thing that I can think of, I don't have proof, it would appear that social media has something to do with it.
I can see that.
I don't know what the connection is. I mean, that stuff is being done right now that I'm not at liberty to talk about, but there are things trying to address this entity issue. It's a big issue. And I think that it leads to, this concept of legacy and this concept of destiny. Men should be considering and putting energy into what they're leaving for their sons. what are they leaving behind for the next generation of men? And I think that they got to start addressing, this our world view. Do we understand the energy body, the light body, the quantum field? Are we really trying to get a good sense of this? Mm-hmm. What's happening with women? And there needs to be something done about it, because the feminist thing is killing the community. It's killing a lot of stuff, and it's really robbing the potency of a lot of men. We're letting an educational system train our sons that is dysfunctional. I wouldn't even call it an education system. And we can go on and on and on, but I think we have to start thinking about this in a legacy perspective. When we start dealing with male dysfunction, sexual dysfunction, potency issues, I think we need to start coming with a framework that we can pass on to the next generation. And that's part of why Grand Trine does what it does. So that's about it.
Wow. I mean, this, it's like everything that we talked about today, it truly touched me here, because I know how important it is, and it's a reality of my existence. You know what I mean? It's like I see it all, and and I've been there in a lot of cases. Master Yao, I don't, all I can say is thank you for spending this time. And I would definitely love to come, sit with you again, and and definitely building other great topics. And like I always do, I'll put whatever information you'd like from me out, so to contact you with that about your books and the Grand Trine, etc. And all I can say is thank you, brother.
I appreciate the opportunity so much, and for your audience and your future audiences, just hello, I love you, and I look forward to interacting with you guys through the books and through our programs. And this year, in spite of the COVID scenario, we've gotten more support from the population than any year prior. And so I believe that people, saw in their hearts that they didn't want to abandon Grand Trine, and they knew that it was important, and so they've continued to support us. I know many of them in the midst of their own financial crisis. That's it's touched my heart, and I'm really I'm hoping that some of your followers will become some of our followers.
Wow, you already know I'm definitely gonna be rolling you, Master. So that's a guaranteed thing, And again, thank you so much, for being on the Elevate Beings podcast, and this was a wonderful experience.
Thank you.